the untapped potential of the cocaine market. Escobar had been the most powerful man in the country. Most of the world's coca production was concentrated in Peru and Bolivia. Pablo Escobar Gaviria. The name evokes images of immense wealth, extreme violence, and a nation engulfed in chaos. Known as the King of Cocaine, Escobar built the largest drug empire the world has ever seen. But how did a boy from the outskirts of Medellin rise to become one of the most notorious criminals in history? This is the story of a man who climbed from poverty to amass billions, leaving behind a legacy of violence that continues to cast a shadow over Colombia. Escobar's journey to infamy is a tale of stark contrasts. While he is best remembered as a ruthless drug lord, his life reflects deeper realities in Colombia during the 20th century, a time marked by sharp inequalities. The poor, like Escobar's family, struggled for survival, while the elite thrived in wealth and power. These socio-political conditions significantly influenced the young Escobar's worldview. Pablo Escobar was born on December 1, 1949, in Rio Negro, a small town nestled in the Antioquia department of Colombia. His father, Abel de Jesus Escobar Echeverri, was a humble farmer who struggled to support his large family, while his mother, Hermilda Gaviria, worked as a school teacher. Although Escobar's family was not destitute, they were far from wealthy. Escobar grew up amidst the political turmoil and violence that gripped Colombia during the 1950s and 60s. Known as La Violencia, this period followed the assassination of populist leader Jorge Eliezer Gaitán in 1948 and plunged the country into chaos as left-wing guerrillas fought conservative forces. The violence left an indelible mark on young Escobar and instilled a sense of pragmatism regarding brutality. During his childhood, Escobar moved with his family to Medellin, Colombia's second-largest city, which at the time was undergoing rapid industrialization. While some residents benefited from the city's growth, many more were left impoverished, struggling to survive in the slums on the city's outskirts. These sharp divides between the rich and poor shaped Escobar's deep desire to achieve wealth and power at any cost. Escobar's early experiences of poverty would later fuel his infamous ambition. It's said that even as a young boy, he dreamed of greatness. His friends from childhood recall that Escobar often expressed a desire to be wealthy or even to become the president of Colombia. His determination to escape his circumstances would drive his criminal activities and set him on the path to becoming the world's most notorious drug lord. Pablo Escobar's criminal career began long before he entered the cocaine trade. In his teenage years, he showed an early aptitude for illegal activities. Alongside his cousin and lifelong partner in crime, Gustavo Gaviria, Escobar engaged in various petty crimes, from stealing tombstones and reselling them to smuggling stolen goods. His ingenuity and fearlessness quickly set him apart from other small-time criminals in Medellin. Escobar began to establish his reputation through these early operations. His first substantial foray into crime came through the smuggling of contraband, particularly cigarettes and stolen electronics, which were in high demand. During the 1960s and early 1970s, Medellin became a hotbed for black market goods, and Escobar took full advantage of the opportunity. Smuggling provided the young criminal with both a steady income and valuable connections within Medellin's underworld. The criminal landscape of Medellin at this time was defined by local gangs and an emerging network of smugglers. Escobar's ability to navigate these dangerous circles earned him the loyalty of his peers, and his habit of bribing local police officers ensured that his operations ran smoothly. The profits from smuggling provided the financial foundation for his future cocaine empire. Escobar's early criminal enterprises also taught him critical lessons about logistics and distribution, skills that would later prove invaluable when he entered the cocaine trade. However, the small profits of smuggling paled in comparison to what would come next. The transition from contraband smuggling to cocaine marked a turning point in Escobar's life. During the early 1970s, Colombia was not yet a major player in the international drug trade. Most of the world's coca production was concentrated in Peru and Bolivia, while cocaine was a relatively obscure drug, primarily consumed by the wealthy elite in the United States. But demand was growing, and Escobar recognized the untapped potential of the cocaine market. Initially, Escobar's involvement in the cocaine trade was modest. He began by purchasing small amounts of coca paste from producers in Bolivia and Peru, and refining it into cocaine in makeshift laboratories in Colombia's remote jungles. At first, he used human mules to smuggle the drug into the United States in small quantities, often concealed in luggage or hidden on the body. However, Escobar's ambitions far exceeded the limits of small-scale smuggling. He envisioned an industrial-scale operation, one capable of producing vast quantities of cocaine and distributing it across the United States. As cocaine use exploded in the 1970s and 1980s, particularly among the wealthy and middle class, Escobar saw an opportunity to build a drug empire. In 1976, Escobar made a crucial decision. He partnered with other traffickers to form what would become the Medellín Cartel. The cartel was structured like a business, with clear hierarchies and roles, but it operated with the ruthlessness of a military organization. Together with figures like Carlos Slater, Gonzalo Rodriguez Gacha, and the Ochoa brothers, Escobar established control over every aspect of the cocaine supply chain, from production in the jungles to distribution in the streets of Miami and New York. The Medellín Cartel quickly became one of the most powerful criminal organizations in the world. By controlling the flow of cocaine from Colombia to the United States, Escobar and his partners amassed unprecedented wealth. At the height of their operations, the cartel was smuggling an estimated 15 tons of cocaine into the U.S. every day. Escobar's leadership style was a mix of charm and terror. His famous phrase, plata o plomo, meaning silver or lead, encapsulated his approach to dealing with opposition. Those who cooperated with him received lavish bribes, while those who stood in his way faced brutal violence. His vast wealth allowed him to bribe politicians, police officers, and even judges, ensuring that the cartel operated with impunity. As the profits from cocaine trafficking poured in, Pablo Escobar's wealth grew to almost unimaginable levels. By the mid-1980s, Forbes listed him as one of the richest men in the world, with a fortune estimated at around $30 billion. However, Escobar's real wealth was likely even higher, as much of it was hidden in secret bank accounts or buried in cash-filled barrels across Colombia. One of the most infamous symbols of Escobar's wealth was his estate, Hacienda Nápoles. This sprawling property covered over 7,000 acres and included a private zoo with exotic animals, a collection of vintage cars, a racetrack, and luxurious mansions. The estate was a testament to Escobar's power and wealth, but it also served as a key logistical hub for the cartel's cocaine operations. Despite his lavish lifestyle, Escobar was also known for his frugality. He famously hid large sums of cash in various locations across Colombia to avoid detection by authorities. It is estimated that he lost billions of dollars simply because he forgot where he had buried it, or because rats destroyed the cash. On one occasion, While hiding from government forces in the mountains, Escobar reportedly burned $2 million in cash to keep his daughter warm. To many Colombians, particularly the poor residents of Medellin's slums, Escobar was more than just a drug lord. He was a Robin Hood figure. Using his immense wealth, he funded public works projects that the government had long neglected. Escobar built housing for the poor, donated money to schools, constructed football fields, and provided medical clinics in some of Medellin's poorest neighborhoods. Escobar's philanthropic efforts earned him widespread support among the city's marginalized communities. For these people, the Colombian government had long been a symbol of corruption and neglect, while Escobar was seen as a benefactor who genuinely cared for their well-being. This loyalty would later serve Escobar well, as many residents of Medellin's barrios protected him from law enforcement and provided him with valuable information about police raids. However, while Escobar's generosity earned him the love of many, his reign was marked by extreme violence. He was responsible for the deaths of thousands of people, including politicians, judges, journalists, and police officers. Escobar's sicarios, or hitmen, operated with impunity, carrying out assassinations and bombings to eliminate his enemies and strike fear into the hearts of those who opposed him. One of the defining issues of Escobar's life was his opposition to extradition. Extradition to the United States was his greatest fear because it meant losing control over his empire and facing a life behind bars. For Escobar, who wielded near-complete power in Colombia, extradition was the ultimate threat. During the 1980s, Colombia came under increasing pressure from the U.S. government to combat drug trafficking. Presidents Ronald Reagan and George H.W. Bush ramped up the war on drugs, and the DEA, Drug Enforcement Administration, made the Medellín Cartel its primary target. The Colombian government, led by President Belisario Betancourt, initially resisted calls for extradition, fearing the wrath of Escobar and his cartel. Escobar's response to the threat of extradition was violent. Between 1989 and 1993, he waged an all-out war against the Colombian government. His cartel carried out bombings, assassinations, and kidnappings in a desperate bid to prevent the passage of extradition laws. One of the most infamous acts of violence during this period was the bombing of Avianca Flight 203, which killed all 107 passengers aboard. The intended target was Cesar Gaviria, the presidential candidate who supported extradition. As Colombia descended into chaos, the violence reached unprecedented levels. Escobar placed bounties on the heads of police officers, offering cash rewards for their deaths. In Medellin, police officers became daily targets, with hundreds killed in the line of duty. The Colombian government responded by forming elite military units, with support from U.S. intelligence, to hunt down Escobar and dismantle the Medellin Cartel. In 1991, Escobar made a bold decision to negotiate his surrender with the Colombian government. In exchange for protection from extradition, Escobar agreed to be imprisoned, but only on his terms. The government, eager to end the violence, accepted his offer, and Escobar built his own prison, known as La Catedral. La Catedral was no ordinary prison. It was a luxury resort, complete with a football field, a jacuzzi, a bar, and comfortable living quarters. Escobar continued to run his cartel from within the prison walls, hosting parties, holding business meetings, and enjoying the comforts of home. His associates came and went freely, and he continued to orchestrate the cartel's drug trafficking operations. For a time, it seemed as though Escobar had outsmarted the Colombian government once again. However, as reports of his continued criminal activities from within La Catedral spread, the government was forced to act. In 1992, they moved to transfer Escobar to a more secure facility. Rather than face imprisonment in a real prison, Escobar escaped, disappearing into the Colombian countryside. Following his escape from La Catedral, Pablo Escobar went into hiding. For the next year, he remained a fugitive, constantly on the move to evade capture. The Colombian government, with significant support from the United States, formed an elite task force known as the Search Block, which was tasked with finding and killing Escobar. The task force, led by Colonel Hugo Martinez, relentlessly pursued Escobar, using advanced technology and intelligence provided by the DEA to track his movements. As Escobar's enemies closed in, his once loyal associates began to turn against him. The Cali Cartel, rivals of the Medellin Cartel, joined forces with the Search Block and a vigilante group known as Los Pepes, people persecuted by Pablo Escobar. Los Pepes was composed of individuals who had been victimized by Escobar's violence, and they sought revenge by targeting his family, properties, and associates. Escobar's network of protection began to crumble. Many of his trusted lieutenants were captured or killed, and his vast wealth was depleted as he spent millions to evade capture. His family, who had been his greatest priority, was forced into hiding. The once powerful drug lord was now a fugitive, moving between safe houses and relying on his dwindling group of supporters for survival. On December 2, 1993, Pablo Escobar's life came to a dramatic and violent end. After months of evading capture, the Search Block, with help from U.S. intelligence, tracked Escobar to a middle-class neighborhood in Medellin. He had been hiding in a small house, communicating with his family via a radio phone. When the authorities intercepted one of these calls, they were able to pinpoint his location. In a final desperate attempt to escape, Escobar fled across the rooftops of the neighborhood. However, he was quickly surrounded by the Search Block. A brief gunfight ensued, and Escobar was shot multiple times. He was killed instantly by a shot through the ear, although some believe that he may have taken his own life to avoid capture. The death of Pablo Escobar marked the end of an era in Colombia's history. For years, Escobar had been the most powerful man in the country, ruling with fear and violence. His death was celebrated by many as a victory in the war on drugs, but it did not bring an end to the drug trade. New cartels rose to take his place, and the demand for cocaine continued to fuel the illegal drug market. Even after his death, Pablo Escobar's legacy continues to loom large in Colombia and around the world. To some, he is remembered as a villain, a man responsible for the deaths of thousands and the destabilization of an entire country. His brutal methods and disregard for human life left a lasting scar on Colombia, and his reign of terror is a reminder of the dangers of unchecked ambition. However, for others, particularly the poor residents of Medellin, who benefited from his charity, Escobar is still seen as a hero. His efforts to provide housing, jobs, and infrastructure for the marginalized communities of Colombia earned him a level of loyalty that persists to this day. In Medellin, there are murals and tributes to Escobar, and his name continues to be the subject of debate and fascination. Escobar's story has been immortalized in popular culture, with countless books, documentaries, and films exploring his life. He remains a symbol of both the allure and the dangers of wealth and power. While the Medellin Cartel is gone, the drug trade that Escobar helped create is stronger than ever, with new criminal organizations continuing to profit from the global demand for illegal drugs. Escobar's life and death serve as a cautionary tale, a reminder of the devastating consequences that arise when ambition, wealth, and violence converge. Thanks for watching. If you enjoyed this, please like, share, and subscribe to History Portal for more historical stories.